New mortgage rule changes that happened last week. Make sure you stay tuned to this episode of Prime Properties TV to know how it affects you. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. I'm so glad you could join us here. Just so a few of you guys have known, I was recently discharged out of the hospital for having my appendix removed. Don't worry, I'm completely okay now. I spent a week staying at home recovering from the surgery, and I'm feeling a lot better, so do not worry. So in today's episode, I know a few of you guys have probably heard or learned about the fact that OSFI just passed the new B20 guidelines. One of the major guideline changes proposed is that conventional mortgages are going to be tested 200 basis points, or what they call BPS, above the posted rate. Don't worry, if none of that made any sense to you, I'm going to break it down for you as usual and then give you my feedback on it before it gets nerdy. So just a little bit of background information. OSFI is basically a regulatory institution that governs the financial part of the Canadian government. Now, they're an independent agency that's supposed to contribute to the public confidence on how the Canadians view the financial system. So in layman's term, they're basically just a bunch of people who can make changes to the Canadian financial system, and some of these being changes are mortgages, okay? So now a conventional mortgage is your standard mortgage, which most people do with like a 20% down payment on a variable rate. And at 20% down payment, you do not need mortgage insurance, or some of you guys know it as CMHC insurance, okay? It's only required with mortgages that have less than 20% down. And when you have less than 20% down on your mortgage, you're required to go through what they call a stress test. And this was passed last year in 2016, also by OSFI. Now, this current change is that saying that the stress test, that's going to be applied to everybody, including those who have 20% down payment. So what this basically means is that when you go and apply for a mortgage, they're going to test your financial capability to see if you can pay your mortgage if the interest rate goes up by 2% or 200 basis points, and each basis point is 0.01%, okay? So basically, with all that information out of the way, how's this going to affect you? Basically, everyone is going to have their buying powers ultimately reduced come January 1st, 2018. Courtesy of our friend from Scott at CIBC, here is a chart he put together to saying how the new change may affect you. As long as you guys can see here, a lot of people have their buying power reduced by about 14%. So if you're an investor and you have some properties already, and you can likely offset the stress test by utilizing your equity by coming up with a larger down payment, which is quite standard. As with all of these recent changes, if you're in the game, you should be okay, and you should have options. However, if you're a first-time home buyer, this will affect you quite hard, I have to say. Similar to the one that was passed last October, your buying power is going to be reduced significantly by January. An alternative you could do is qualify for a fixed rate instead of the variable, and then you can avoid the stress test altogether. But obviously, there are some drawbacks to that. So make sure you speak to your qualified mortgage agent regarding your specific situation. And if you need a contact to a few good ones, you can let me know. I'm happy to connect you, okay? So ultimately, how will this affect the market? We have to think of it kind of like a cascading effect, okay? When the first stress test was passed last year, we saw a lot of people forced to reduce what they were able to afford. So some examples are the $1 million buyers ended up going to the $800,000. And what that meant is they could have went from a detached home to a semi or a town at this time last year when they had that change. When now we're seeing the $800,000 buyers go from a large townhome to maybe a large condo, because that's what all they're going to be able to afford with the stress test. With these changes happening, we're likely going to see a similar shift in the market again. Ultimately, I don't think this is going to be good for the real estate market, because it's going to put more downward pressure on the most affordable real estate class already, which is the condos. And as if the condos aren't already hot enough right now, because they're the only things that are affordable. So the resale and new condo market will likely experience an increased demand in addition to the massive demands that the condo rentals have seen in the last 2 months. I'm already kind of feeling it because there's a lot of people scrambling to buy something before January 1st hits. So in other words, you may want to consider purchasing condos for investment purposes sooner rather than later, because there is going to be a price increase, my suspicion. The photo above over here, courtesy of Better Dwelling, shows an average median income versus the average home in each area. The blue boxes means the income that in the area can afford. Red means that the income cannot afford that house. Now you look at it and you see how it's a moving image. After the stress test, you see a lot more boxes become red. And what that means is that that area for that income is going to become less and less affordable. So you can see that there is pressure on the condo market when that happens. So if you're a condo investor, looking very, very closely at the bottom middle of the chart, you can see that the entire lakeside, which is the downtown on Toronto, turn red, which means that people can no longer afford to buy in that area in the downtown core, and it means that they're going to have to rent. And what that means for you as a condo investor is opportunity for better rentals. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up. If you learned something, make sure to subscribe to the Prime Property CEO channel down here. If you have any questions or comment, feel free to leave them in the section below or comment me directly. And make sure you guys subscribe to the Prime Property CEO channel page in the description below as well, so you can get weekly goodies and first access to investment opportunities. And make sure, please share this with family and friends. And until next time, happy real estate, guys. Thanks for watching. If you learned something, make sure you hit the like button. Thank you guys for watching. If you learned something in this video, make sure to... Thank you guys for watching.